Europe believed it had entered an age of progress. Giant cities glowed with electric light. Empires stretched across continents. Kings, generals, and politicians promised stability. But behind the celebrations, behind the royal ceremonies and diplomatic smiles, a hidden alliance system was quietly turning the continent into a loaded gun. And in the summer of 1914 someone pulled the trigger. For decades, Europe's great powers had been building secret agreements behind closed doors. Germany feared encirclement, Russia feared humiliation, Austria-Hungary feared collapse from within, Britain feared losing its global dominance. Every nation claimed it wanted peace. While preparing for war, railroads were redesigned for troop movements, factories stockpiled weapons, military plans were timed down to the hour. Europe was no longer a continent, it was a ticking machine. In the center of this growing tension stood a fragile empire already beginning to crack apart, Austria-Hungary. Dozens of ethnic groups lived under one aging crown. Nationalist movements spread through the Balkans like wildfire. Serbian influence was growing, Russian influence followed close behind, and deep inside government offices, military officials began discussing a terrifying possibility, that only war could save their empire. Then came June the 28th, 1914. A royal motorcade moved through the streets of Sarajevo. Beneath heavy summer heat, crowds watched from sidewalks as armed officers scanned rooftops and alleyways. Hidden among the spectators were young conspirators carrying pistols and bombs. Their mission was simple: kill the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. The first attack failed. A bomb exploded behind the royal car, shattering glass and filling the street with smoke. Civilians screamed, soldiers rushed through the chaos. Yet astonishingly, the Archduke decided to continue the visit. What happened next would change human history forever. Hours later, after a wrong turn through the city streets, the royal vehicle stopped directly in front of one of the assassins. By pure coincidence, the target had arrived at the killer's feet. 2 gunshots echoed through Sarajevo. Within minutes, the future ruler of Austria-Hungary was dead. But the assassination itself was not enough to cause world war. The real disaster began in secret meetings held afterward. In Vienna, political leaders demanded revenge against Serbia. In Berlin, German officials offered unconditional support, a promise historians would later call the blank check. That single guarantee changed everything. Austria-Hungary now believed it could act without fear. Yet behind the scenes, another empire was watching carefully. The real disaster began in secret meetings held afterward. In Vienna, political leaders demanded revenge against Serbia. In Berlin, German officials offered unconditional support, a promise historians would later call the blank check. That single guarantee changed everything. Austria-Hungary now believed it could act without fear. Yet behind the scenes, another empire was watching carefully. Russia considered itself the protector of Slavic nations, especially Serbia. If Austria crushed Serbia, Russian influence in the Balkans could collapse. Military advisors warned the Tsar that backing down again would make Russia appear weak before the world. Fear replaced caution. Mobilization plans were quietly prepared. And then the alliances began activating one after another like falling dominoes. Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum so severe that many believed Serbia could never accept it. But unexpectedly, Serbia agreed to nearly every demand. For a moment, Europe stood on the edge of avoiding catastrophe. It wasn't enough. Hardliners inside Vienna still wanted war. Germany pushed for rapid action before Russia could fully mobilize. Diplomats sent desperate telegrams across Europe. Some leaders still believed the crisis could be contained. Others secretly believed a short victorious war might strengthen their nations forever. They were catastrophically wrong. As armies mobilized, Europe's military timetables became impossible to stop. Germany activated the Schlieffen Plan, a massive strategy designed years earlier for a two-front war. The plan demanded a lightning invasion through Belgium to defeat France quickly before turning east toward Russia. But Belgium was neutral. Britain had pledged to defend Belgian neutrality decades earlier. Suddenly, a regional Balkan conflict transformed into a continental war, and then, into a global one. Millions of soldiers flooded train stations. Families waved goodbye believing the war would end by Christmas. Young men marched with excitement through cheering crowds. Newspapers promised glory. Politicians promised victory. No one understood what modern industrial warfare would actually become. Within weeks, Europe descended into unimaginable violence. Machine guns tore through entire battalions in seconds. Artillery shattered forests into black wastelands. Trenches stretched across hundreds of miles. Poison gas drifted through the battlefield clouds. Ancient empires that had ruled for centuries began collapsing under the pressure of total war. The Ottoman Empire entered the conflict. The Russian Empire began starving from within. Austria-Hungary fractured under military disaster. disasters and ethnic rebellion. Germany faced blockade, exhaustion, and unrest. And across Europe millions disappeared into mud, smoke, and steel. But perhaps the most chilling truth of all is that many leaders never truly intended to create a world war. They believed alliances would prevent conflict. Instead, alliances guaranteed it. Each country feared appearing weak. Each mobilization triggered another. Every decision narrowed the possibility of peace. By August 1914, Europe's leaders were no longer controlling events. The system they had built was controlling them. And when the war finally ended in 1918, four empires had vanished from the map. The German Empire collapsed into revolution. Austria-Hungary dissolved into new nations. The Ottoman Empire was carved apart. The Russian Empire fell into civil war and revolution. Entire royal bloodlines disappeared. Borders were redrawn. Economies shattered. Nearly an entire generation was lost. Yet the story did not truly end there, because the peace that followed created new anger, new humiliation, and new extremism. In many ways, the alliances and decisions of 1914 did not simply destroy old empires. They planted the seeds for an even deadlier conflict. Only 20 years later, World War I was not started by one gunshot alone. It was created by fear, by secret promises, by pride, by leaders trapped inside alliances they no longer controlled. And in the end, the Dark Alliance meant to protect Europe became the force that destroyed it.